And so I'd like to call this meeting to order, Public Works and Contracting Committee. Roll call, please.
Calling the roll, Mr. Germana.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Here.
Mr. Greenspan. Here. Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. There is a quorum.
Okay, is there anybody here for any public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Right now we have 3 individuals signed in to speak. The first one is Lisa Holly.
Good morning.
Good morning. There we go. Tall girl. There we go. My name is Lisa Holly, and I am the owner of Berea Moving and Storage Company in Cleveland. We are a 55-year-old business that has been serving the county with various programs since 1987. My mother and father are the ones that started the business, my mother being the president of the company. Back in the 80s, the county had an FBE program, which our company was one of the very first companies that utilized the FBE program. And after the controversy, I don't know the right words to use, that had happened where the FBE program was removed, we stayed on with the county as a small business enterprise, but the FBE, was no longer available for me. For myself personally, it means a lot of different things. Number one, it represents my mother. My mother died about 10 years ago in a car accident, and it was very, very important to her. So for me, that's one of the reasons I'd like to see the FBE program re-invoked. The other reason that I'd like to see the FBE program, put back in place is that not only does my company do work directly for the county, but we often subcontract to other moving and storage companies and to other art handling facilities. We are an art handler as well as a mover. And by having more opportunities, that gives me, again, bigger placement with other movers, with the county. I'm an FBE with the city of Cleveland. I have an FBE, I'm working on my woman business enterprise for the federal. And I just think that it's a very good situation to have women represented, as well as small businesses, as well as local producers. So I personally would like to have it re-invoked. And again, honestly, one of the biggest reasons is, again, to re-honor my mother and my father, because, again, if you think about 1987, and here she was running a moving and storage company, which didn't happen very often back then. In fact, she did it in 1961. So it would, for me, would be an honor to bring it back to the situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Questions, huh? Did you have any?
No, but if you stick around.
Here or there?
No, have your seat, but, our format is 3 minutes, but you're very much a part of this conversation. And I kind of missed what date you said the county did away with the program. But, we will find out when and why. So thank you for your comments. Next.
Next is Margaret Scrawl.
Good morning. I'm Margaret Scarl with Thermotech Insulation. I'm here to talk about the Cuyahoga County FBE program that they're proposing. Currently, the work environment, construction is typically male dominant. When I started my company in 1993, there were only a few companies that were run by female business. I'm an insulation contractor. We do industrial and commercial piping and ductwork insulation. So the problem with the current structure, one challenge for a female business is lacking incentives for hiring a female-owned business. Females sometimes are taken, not taken seriously and overlooked on job sites. Benefits, I believe, for implementing this program, environment as a whole, it would increase the workforce diversity. It would help the female-owned companies that are first starting out. Personally, it may secure contracts that I may not been otherwise offered. I think it would be a plus if we would sit there and, if you would sit there and consider putting this program back in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
Next is Peggy Powers.
Hello, I'm Peggy Powers with River City Building Solutions. We are a female-owned building material supply company, and we are certified with other entities like the City of Cleveland and Ohio. With Ohio, it's EDGE, but it helps female-owned businesses. And I think the program is really important because in the construction industry where we are, it's a commercial construction industry, it's a very male-dominated field. And as Margaret was saying, I don't think women are necessarily taken as seriously as we could be. And what these programs do, it creates an incentive for people to give us a chance. And in my experience, once people do give us a chance and use us, we've gotten positive feedback, I think totally across the board, where people are impressed with what we do and then they're happy to work with us and they want to continue the relationship with us. But it just opens doors and creates opportunities where we might not have it otherwise. So for that reason, I think it would be a great thing if the program was reinstated to include female business enterprise and minority business enterprise to create that opportunity. We are certified right now as a small business enterprise with Cuyahoga County, but it hasn't really done much for us as far as creating opportunities. A little bit, but very little. So I think that expanding the program would definitely be a positive thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
No one else is signed in to speak, Mr. Chair.
I don't see Dave Wondolowski that from the Cleveland Building Trades that wanted to speak today. He may come in later. Okay, so that's the three for public comment. Okay, approval of the minutes. We got the minutes of the January 26th. Oh, sorry. That was, I'm referring to the, so we have the February 17th, 2016 meeting minutes. Can we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Oh.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And I abstained because I wasn't here. But I saw it on live stream, and that is something that is so positive. Just as a comment, Mr. Jones, you got to speak directly into the mic, because I heard everybody, especially Lenore, you did fantastic. But I was straining to hear you, Brunel. So, but I caught 3/4 of what you had to say. So
I will remember that in the future.
okay, great.
I think it's my funeral direct experience of being quiet on. I will remember.
Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll get 42, 43 out of the way. Very important, but we have important people sitting there, so welcome, Stan.
Good morning.
We'll have Janine read 42 into the record.
Resolution number 2016-0042, declaring that public convenience and welfare requires replacement of Pleasant Valley Bridge number 09.68 over Cuyahoga River in the City of Independence and Village of Valley View. Total estimated project cost, $10 million.
Good morning, Stan Kozaleski, Public Works. As part of our annual bridge inspection program, we inspect all of our structures. This bridge has a general appraisal of 4A and a sufficiency rating of 43.7 based on last year's inspections. As part of those inspections, they're tied into federal funding. Our federal funding for our bridges comes from the local bridge program, which is administered through the County Engineers Association on behalf of ODOT. This bridge is eligible for funding through that. This bridge is a $10 million cost. $5 million is the cap of that program. So at this time, we're going to leverage that $5 million and do $5 million of our local road and bridge fund. We're anticipating construction in 2019. Probably in 2018, we will be looking to submit for some of the local share from Ohio Public Works. You can only go forward. So we're going to put it in our program now as fully funded, the local share by county funds, but our goal is to augment those county funds with Ohio Public Works funds. We feel it will score very high based on the conditions. This bridge has 13,800 vehicles per day going over this. It's down in the valley by the towpath down there and stuff. So we're recommending welfare and convenience so we can go ahead and get some legislation through the communities. And then we're in the process of proceeding with getting a consultant on board to start the design work. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Members of the committee, Mr. Greenspan?
Thank you. So 5 million is coming out of local road and bridge.
Correct.
What is the balance in the local road and bridge fund?
Oh, that's through the state.
Okay.
That program is administered. I can get you the numbers. I don't know off the top of my head. Every year, their goal is they administer that program statewide to all the counties. So we get 1 to 2 projects every year. It's kind of like how NOACA, but they put it out. I can get you the numbers and how much they have annually available. But for us to get 2 bridges at 5 and almost $2 million on the other one, $7 million is very good for us. But I can get you the details.
Okay, Mr. Miller and then Mrs. Conwell.
Could you say a little bit more about the condition scoring system? What do those numbers mean that you gave us as to how bad a condition this bridge is in?
On the sufficiency ratings, it's a 0 through 9 scale. Basically, a 0 is basically a new structure. As you go down to 9, it's basically a structure that you probably have, it's either posted or it's closed. We tied those numbers in together through the bridge inspection reports. They look at they weight the different values, or they score they score the approaches deck, the superstructure, which is above the abutments, the seal that supports the road or the concrete. Substructure items are the abutments, the head walls, any parapets in the river to help support this span. Sorry about that. If there's any channel erosion that's impacting it, all those kind of go into that structure. A 4A, a 4 is pretty much that this project needs to be either repaired or replaced. The sufficiency rating of a 43, you're kind of getting at that balance between this one actually, this 43.7, sorry, is basically at the point where you're looking between a rehab and a replacement depending on the structure. So we're going to go through and do a study of the structure to see what items we might be able to replace. If the abutments are solid, then we'll just do the replacement of the upper superstructure.
And the 43.7 is on a scale from what to what?
0 to 100. Mm-hmm. And basically, when the program was initiated many, many years ago, they used to use the sufficiency rating as a scoring mechanism. Anything under 50 would be a rehab, 50 to 30 would be a rehab, under 30 would be replacement. But those are the numbers now, and you're trying to project out 4 years from now. So that's why this isn't a rehab or replacement. So our first look at this structure will be through the design, is whether there's components we can salvage, or whether we have to do a complete replacement. This is also have some issues with debris coming down the river during flooding with the Cuyahoga River. So we're going to be working with regional to see what we may be able to do to work with them from the stormwater management side to make sure that either the blockages aren't there, if there's ways we can help them with their stormwater issues and with the new structure or rehab of the structure.
And do you expect the cost to vary from the $10 million number depending on whether it's a replacement or a rehab?
This estimate has about 10% 15% contingency in it. We're estimating it on a high end for this situation. If we come back and determine that we need more money, we would be looking at that issue one funds. I mean, at the preliminary stages, we tried to be very conservative based on the square footage estimate of the deck. It's a very long structure. Through our bridges, when we're talking about replacements, for the most part, they're very good. Our staff is very good at it because you don't have to worry about the rehab. When you take the deck off, you lift that the weight off the structure, and then you can take that weight off the parapets. It might show a little bit more deterioration, but we feel very comfortable with these numbers. We cannot go back to the local bridge program, but if during this development of the project, we'll try to keep it within that budget. If there's something larger in it, our staff will internally look to see whether we should go with a more expensive structure, determining what it is, and then how we will fund that.
And when you said our approach is to be conservative, by that you mean you tend to estimate on the high end, and if things go well, it might come in a little less. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Mrs. Cowan?
Through the chair. Hello, through the chair to Mr. Stanislawski. Following up on Councilman Miller's point, has it been any maintenance on this bridge prior, and how much did it cost?
Yes, I can get you the history of the maintenance. I do know, I think this was one of the bridges that has a cantilevered structure, the sidewalks, and I'm trying to think if that was about 3 or 4 years ago. We did do a project because of the safety of we had some these cantilevered sidewalks fall off. We had done a major repair project and one out of our bridges that had these cantilevered sidewalks. But I can get you the maintenance history on this bridge.
And a picture of how the sidewalks look.
Yeah,
Is this bridge currently, is it shut down or is it being
no,
used?
it's open to traffic.
Okay, so the 9 is not in danger or a risk?
No, of the 4 is not. If there's something annually through our inspections, if there's something in terms of we do load ratings on our structures, if it needs to be a load reduction for heavy vehicles, it's kind of down in the valley. I don't know how much truck traffic. I think on the west end, it's up by 21 and stuff. I know there's a lot of businesses and industries there. I'm not sure how many come down, but our staff looks at it all the time to make sure that there's no issues where a truck comes along and does any damage to the structure.
As far as you mentioned the Ohio public funds kicking in, we're going to upfront the $10 million cost. Has it ever been a time that we weren't reimbursed?
No. What we do is, as part of federal funds, similar to what we do with our federal aid road and bridge projects, those funds, when in 2019, when this comes, we'll get what's called an LPA agreement. We won't bid that project till we get that agreement to the lockdown in that fiscal year. And then basically we use our local share. We bid the project knowing we had those funds of the federal funds. Then throughout the construction of the project, we pay the contractor and then we seek reimbursement monthly or periodically depending on the progress of the project. So we never truly front the $10 million. We use our local share as seed money, and then as the project is awarded, we get the reimbursements back.
Okay, thank you.
LPA stands for?
Local public agency through ODOT. ODOT themselves, as the state, as part of the federal highway, they're the administrators of the federal program. They delegate it. What we do is, based on our experience, we do a lot of federal projects where they delegate that authority to us. We have to make sure that we have all of our processes follow ODOT guidelines. We get regularly audited, even on the fiscal side, to make sure that we can continue to follow the rules and regulations so that we can administer these projects.
So, just what's the steps? This is a resolution declaring the public convenience and welfare.
Correct.
So, what's going to be the steps on this?
The
Because we're
next-
going to see this again because
The next steps, we're in the process of seeking proposals for engineering services. Probably that proposal, once we do the consultant selection, it'll probably be a 2-part proposal. We'll probably do a study phase and then go into the design phase. We don't want to upfront. So that project, that engineering contract and recommendation will probably go through Board of Controls because it will be under $500,000. Probably this group and council as a whole will not see that project till probably 2019 when it goes out for bid. Through the Board of Controls, we'll get legislation signed by the communities. That'll be on a consent agenda through Board of Controls, and then the engineering contracts will probably go through Board of Controls. So those would be the next steps from a legislative process.
And Stan, I'm assuming that you're going to be doing this part of the road at a time so that it's not completely closed.
That is something that we'll work on during the design phase, whether there's an adequate detour. This does span 2 communities, whether we can do it part with or not. Those are the things that we will engage the communities on during the design phase. And if there's the need from the communities to maintain traffic 1 lane at a time, then we'll do that. Sometimes it does add cost because if you can get in there and shut the whole structure down, but we're very concerned about the flow of traffic through that area. So those things will be discussed with the communities during the preliminary development of the plans so that everybody's on board. And then that'll just depend on the communities. If they would like us to maintain traffic, and we can do that based on the structural type. Sometimes you have a structure based on the way it's constructed, it's difficult, but we'll work with the communities. My guess would be that this would probably maintain traffic, but I'd like to let that go through the design process and let everybody make that informed decision at the time.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Stan, this is a $10 million project, and $5 million is coming from the state. Let's talk a little bit about how the money flows back into the community. Because of the $5 million from the state, the contracting is certainly opened up to everyone in the state, as terms of potential bidders.
What we do, correct. We have to follow federal guidelines because there are federal funds administered down through the state.
Yeah.
So any type of, any other federal aid project that we've administered and we bid out there, it follows the federal guidelines, I'm not sure if it's the DBE or, I don't recall those things right. And Lenore probably could give that a more detail. But whatever those rules are, we have to follow the federal rules on that. On the engineering is going to be funded 100% local. So we'll use our county local procurement methods for SBEs and such for the participation on the engineering contracts.
So we don't have our SBE goals attached to this.
Not at this time. This is just legislation authorizing us to proceed with the project and do legislation. So when we go forward, like for the engineering services, our planning staff will work with Office of Procurement and Diversity to set aside how much of this work should be set up for an SBE goal. So when those contracts come forward, we'll explain what percentage was set and then how do they meet those at that time. And then when the construction contract goes forward, whatever those goals are, and at that time, those will be met based on the federal guidelines.
Right, and you're right, we're at the public inconvenience stage right now. We haven't gotten down the road. So I still want to talk a little bit about down the road, what it looks like. In years past, when we've had these state or federal requirements, we didn't have, or I'm really asking the same question again, we did not have the SBE goals attached.
The federal funds have, I think it's DBE goals.
Maybe Lenore could help us.
I think
it's
Lenore,
EDGE or DBE. I know state is DBE, but
am I saying that right, Lenore? Yeah.
Lenore Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. Yes, so when the construction goes through, ODOT reviews the final plans and they set a DBE goal. The difference with the DBE goal from the counties, as far as when we get the information, is that with ODOT, the contractor, prior to execution of the contract, provides their DBE plan. With the county's process, when the contractor submits their bid, we would require their information on their SBE plan. So that's why a lot of times if a project had federal funding, we would present it to council for approval, but we would know what ODOT is requiring as far as percentage, but we would not know at that time how the contractor is meeting the goal, because that's done as part of the final contract process with ODOT.
If and when the disparity legislation and that's on today's agenda, if and when it passes, how would that impact this particular project? Could you give us some type of look down the line and see what would be different under the legislation as opposed to today?
In this case, the funding source will take precedence. So the requirements for federal funds will take precedence over the county. So if this was submitted to me and it was federal funding, I would go with the ODOT DBE goal and not set a county SBE, WBE, or MBE goal.
Okay. We heard in our public comments, Ms. Powers mentioned how even with the SBE, sometimes the females and minorities, although they're part of the SBEs, can sometimes get lost even amongst that SBE. Can you speak to maybe historically, even though we follow those federal and state laws, did we even keep track of how many were FBEs or MBEs?
I can't speak to how the data was tracked because in Public Works, because once we receive the funds as part of the LPA and whatever agreements we accept for the federal funds, we have to provide documentation of how we're complying. So in Public Works, because they mainly use the DBE funds, because it's mainly our main source of road and bridge projects, they have a contract compliance person that monitors for DBE compliance. Now, within that DBE program, their program, unlike the SBE program that we have currently, which is race and gender neutral, the DBE program is a quasi-mix. There are some gender specific because it's disadvantaged businesses. So it can be disadvantaged due to size and also because of the ownership demographics.
And disadvantage represents the entire state of Ohio, doesn't it?
The DBE program is a federal program, and I believe in the state of Ohio, at least the two government entities that I'm aware that do the certifications are RTA, obviously because they use the federal transportation funds, and also ODOT because they're the pipeline for the federal transportation funds.
So
Highway transportation
contractors
funds.
outside of Cuyahoga County actually qualify, can
Correct.
fall under DBE.
Yes.
So obviously I'm a Cuyahoga County councilman. I am focusing on how we most effectively move those dollars through the resident and the contractors within all of Cuyahoga County. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lenore.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, is there any other questions? So you want this immediately effective?
This can go through third reading. There's no urgency on this because we're so early in the process, we have a lot of time, so this could go through three readings.
Well, this is a no-brainer. I can't see how anybody would be against planning for this, because it's an important bridge.
Correct.
So, we have a motion for second reading? Okay, any final questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed nay. Okay, 42 will go for second reading. 43.
Resolution number 2016-0043, declaring that public convenience and welfare requires rehabilitation of Cedar Point Bridge number 00.49 over Rocky River located in Cleveland Metropolitan Park District in the city of North Olmsted. Total estimated project cost $2,268,000.
Morning, Stan Kozlowski, Public Works. Some particulars on this bridge. This has a general appraisal of 5A as compared to the previous one, it had a 4A. The sufficiency rating is a 24.7. It is a little bit lower. That was based on our inspection performed last year in October. One of the big differences between these two structures, to Councilman Miller's point before, this obviously has a lower sufficiency rating but a higher general appraisal rating. This is an arch structure versus the other one is more of a traditional structure. Arch structures typically have a little bit more redundancy, just the way the forces are distributed on the structure. So this project, while it has some lower ratings, it still has enough strength from the standpoint of it being the type of structure it is. This vehicle has about 4,000 vehicles per day. It was built in 1928. It was rehabbed in 1975. Again, this bridge will be federally funded with 80%. A little over 1.8 million, with the county's share being 450,000. This is a county bridge, just like the previous one. It's all our responsibilities. We're looking for construction in 2019. And basically, I'm here to answer any questions.
Questions from the committee? Ms. Conlon?
Through the chair to Mr. Stanlowski, you mentioned in the previous one, the $10 million from the federal So this one is the other bridge that you were talking about? or
Right, yeah,
referring-
that one, it was 10 million total, it was a $5 million cap. Since this one is under the 5 million, we were able to get the full 80%. But it's that same program, and I'll get you data on how much is distributed annually.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Where exactly is this bridge? This isn't the Brook Park Road. We're talking Rocky River, so this is,
Yeah, actually, I have, it's in the Cleveland Metro Parks. I actually have a map here if you'd like to. I can make that available if everybody would like. The little data sheet we put together for each project, it shows the locations of the bridge on the network.
Can I follow up with another question?
okay, go ahead.
Through the chair to Mr. Stanikowski, you said about 4,000 vehicles travel annually across this bridge. Just wondering, what was the maintenance in regards, I mean, you gave us some dates, built in 1928, 1975, rehabbed.
Right.
What is our maintenance since 1975?
I can gather that information and send it to you. What our maintenance department does, just to explain that, every year annually we go out and do inspections. And then as part of that, they'll go out there if they see something that needs to be done. If a drain's blocked, if a railing is looking weak, if some of the parapet is spalling or something like that, they'll make work orders for our maintenance staff to go out and do some repairs to that project. So we do have a process that's based on the inspection annually that we'll go out and do some repairs. So the information that I forward you on both of these structures will include anything that we've done.
When you go out and you annually inspect the bridges, does that necessarily mean that you do some maintenance that year?
It just depends on what's there. Sometimes it's as simple as a drain is blocked, so they might go out there and just blow that out. It might be the expansion joint where it goes into the approach to the bridge, might be wearing and it's loose. They'll come in and fix it. And sometimes all it needs is it's a little spalling. We break off the loose stuff, and it's structurally sound. So it can vary depending upon what they see. And then they go out and do a physical hands-on inspection of these bridges. So they're actually looking to see, they do some, sounding with some hammers and just make sure everything is solid.
So Public Works has some funds set aside, because I've sat on this committee since its inception, and I don't really remember.
Part of Public
Coming
Works,
to
we
us
have
for
a
repairs.
road and bridge maintenance section.
Okay.
And as part of that is funded out of our road and bridge fund. We do have some staff that goes out there and does some preventative maintenance.
Okay, I'm not an engineer or anything, but it's just, to me, it's just hard for me to conceptually think if we're doing constant maintenance on bridges, how do we get to the point, and it's like,
Eventually, there's fatigue in the structures, the members, the steel, you have rebar exposed, you just can't patch it anymore because the steel has corroded and it's rusted and it's popping out. The patch can't stay anymore. It starts losing its strength. So we try to do those before we have to put a load limit or restrictions on the bridges.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah, Mr. Greenspan.
Mr. Chair, thank you. If you can explain the municipality's role in road and bridge maintenance.
Sure. The county, actually, I'm going to start with the county end if I could. The county is responsible for bridges that are 20-foot span or greater from basically abutment, edge of river to edge of river, on a county road over a natural waterway. Those are all county structures. Anything between a 10 and 20-foot span, the county maintains. Also, on the first one, I'm sorry, the county maintains, the county inspects. Anything on a 10 to 20-foot span, the county inspects and the municipalities are responsible for maintenance. We do set aside some monies to help them out on those as part of our capital, but they're ultimately responsible for all the maintenance. Anything under 10 foot is basically their responsibility and inspection. Anything that's not on a county road, a local road, you might have some local roads that have large spans. Those are local responsibilities. They still have to be inspected if it's over a 10-foot span per the federal and state rules on inspection. Anything on state highways, there's a blended responsibilities between ODOT and the communities. And then the federal highway system is all ODOT. So it just depends on what road it's on and then what the span is, and then it kind of falls through basically a matrix.
Yeah, the reason I bring this up in Fairview Park, there's a bridge that goes over the Rocky River, and it's a big bridge, and we've talked about this last year.
Correct.
The city is responsible for maintenance,
Right.
and here's the challenge: the maintenance in this specific project is the railing
Right.
along the pedestrian sidewalks. The cities don't have that. That's millions of dollars to replace that railing. That's what's happening right now. That rail hasn't been replaced in 30 years.
It's been a while.
It is literally rotting. Half the bridge, the sidewalk is closed because the city doesn't have the money to handle the repairs. So we went into the ODOT system in order to provide the funding, and that,
Right.
what, 2018? Is that when that one?
I think so. And on that one, that's what, I think it's Lorraine Road Bridge.
Yeah.
So that's what's just, it's identified as a state bridge on a local highway. So basically, the state is responsible for inspection, major maintenance, and capital. The community that maintains the approach pavements in this park, I think it's Fairview Park and City of Cleveland on each sides. They're responsible for the routine maintenance in terms of snow plowing, general minor maintenance. So that's why we recommended the communities reach out to ODOT, because that's where they can define and see if they can help them out more on it.
So because the railing is not completely destroyed, it's the city's responsibility to maintain it, and the cities don't have the money. So I just bring this to your attention as we talk about other programs and projects within the county, to be cognizant that our cities don't have.
Right.
But this is completely an unfair rule to municipalities to maintain these bridges at all, other than snow plowing. So I just bring it to your attention as a point of information, not anything specific to this project.
Right.
It's just kind of interesting. They call this Cedar Point Bridge. I don't know if it's because of the drop,
Yeah.
or it's a real ride over it, or something.
From way back when the rides were a lot more calmer, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, any further questions? So this, you probably want to go second reading as well.
Correct. Thank
Okay,
you.
can we have a motion for second reading?
So moved.
Second, I'll second. Any final questions? All those in favor of 43 going for second reading, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Thank you, Stan.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Janine, I thought it went pretty well with Councilman Miller handling the meeting last time, so since a lot of them are interrelated, why don't we just read the brief on the five, and then in comments, we'll identify in particular what we're talking about.
Okay, resolution number 2016-0038, authorizing the county executive on behalf of the county to enter into a memorandum of understanding regarding community benefits and inclusion. Ordinance number 2016-0004, enacting sections 503.01A to 503.01D of the Cuyahoga County Code to expand the Small Business Enterprise Program to allow small business set-asides. Ordinance number 2016-0005, enacting sections 503.02 to 503.07 of the Cuyahoga County Code to expand the Small Business Enterprise Program. Ordinance number 2016-0006, enacting chapters 507 and 508 of the Cuyahoga County Code to establish the county's risk management procedures and performance bond and insurance requirements. And ordinance number 2016-0007, enacting chapter 510 of the Cuyahoga County Code to establish the Cuyahoga County Business Economic Inclusion Program.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Jones, do you want to start any comments concerning any of these since your remarks at the last committee meeting? Do you have anything that you want to add, or if you found anything out different that may have changed what you had to say at the last meeting, Mr. Jones?
Not to change anything. We did have a good meeting last week. I'm not actually on this committee, so but I certainly audited last week, and nothing new to add. I did reflect on some of the comments from Councilwoman Sunday Simon and Councilman Greenspan, particularly on the first one, the MOU. So I'm hoping today we can hear a little more about the MOU and this legislation that might bring some clarity to some of their questions.
Okay.
But that's it.
Okay, so let's start with the MOU. We have a proposed amendment to that, and that amendment came from, was that, where did the amendment come
From the law department.
Law Department? Okay, so I move that we adopt the amendment. Is there a second? Second. Okay, it's moved and seconded. Let's talk about the amendment so that we know that this is what we're talking about.
Sure. Ken Surratt, Department of
Ken.
Development. So what the proposed amendment is trying to do is add clarity. There was some question about what we actually were signing onto with this MOU. We've changed the language from enter into to endorse the MOU, which was consistent with other parties have done with this agreement. And what it really does is it doesn't change anything that we have been doing. It asks that we attend the quarterly meetings of this construction diversity and inclusion meeting, which I have done on behalf of the administration. I believe Khalil Sarin on behalf of County Council, and that we publicly report on any major projects that we're doing, about how we're doing towards our goals of inclusion and diversity, which again we've been doing already. So I hope that this language that says endorse makes that a little more clear. We do have members of Greater Cleveland Partnership here who can, and the head of the Construction Diversity Committee, if you want to ask any specific questions about how other entities who have endorsed this MOU have acted and so forth. But again, I don't believe it would change anything that we've already are doing as a county. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mrs. Conway?
Yes, through the chair to Mr. Surratt or to Mr. Kraus. I was just wondering, since there's other municipalities, is this something that you think could possibly go regional, or has there been some dialogue in regards to this community business agreement with other municipalities to sign on board or to endorse?
I think once we complete the process with the county, I think it's an opportunity. Both we can speak to the First Suburbs Consortium, which is the group that we meet with regularly at the inner ring, the suburban communities, about 20 in total. And then we can also schedule a meeting with the Mayors and Managers Association, which we meet with every month. And I think it would be an opportunity to address that group. They usually get over half the mayors in the county to their monthly meetings, and this could be an agenda item. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well, this amendment is really just changing it from the idea that we're part of this, we're just endorsing this on behalf of the county. So I think what we should do is get this amendment out of the way, because then we could get into the nuts and bolts of this. So is there any other questions about changing it to endorse? Yes. Okay. Mr. Miller.
My question is what is the legal impact of endorsing the memorandum of understanding, in the sense of does this make us a signatory just like the other participants, or is it something less than that?
I'll say briefly, and Joe chime in to the councilman. We are not a signatory to the original MOU by endorsing this agreement. It is definitely less than that. again, as I stated before, it will really, our responsibility would just be to participate in the conversations about this with a broader network, which we're already doing, and then publicly report, which, again, we already are as well.
Mr. Greenspan,
I'm sorry,
are you done, Dale?
Just by way of follow-up, why would we want to be less than a full partner? I mean, it sounds like it's we're going part way, but we're not a full participant. Why would we want to do that as opposed to being a full participant?
To the councilman, through the chair, I don't believe that it means that we're not a full participant. We're just not a signer to the original MOU, which was executed 3 years ago. And maybe I don't know if someone from GCP wants to comment on this, but I believe they see all the endorsers as part of this, the movement and making this how we do business in this region. So I wouldn't say that we're not a full partner in it. We're just not an original signer to the MOU.
And are there other entities that are not original signers but have endorsed?
There are, and so I'll quickly read the list. So there's a group of African American contractors that include Coleman Spahn, JWT and Associates, McTech, and Ozan Construction. And then a group of what is referred to as project owners, and I think we would be kind of referred to in the same group, which include a lot of the major organizations that do projects throughout the communities, including university hospitals, the clinic, East Ohio Gas, GEIS, the sewer district, CASE, the school district, Metro Health, CMHA, Sisters of Charity, and Gateway.
And who were the initial signatories?
The original signers of the MOU are the City of Cleveland, Greater Cleveland Partnership, the Construction Employers Association, Hispanic Roundtable, Hard-Hatted Women, the School District, the Urban League, Tri-C, and the Cleveland Building and Construction Trades.
And is there any discussion of at some point there might be a successor agreement that the original signatories plus the endorsers would all sign and be on an equal footing?
I definitely think that's a possibility. I mean, I think as this evolves, I believe when this first started, it really started with a small group and it keeps expanding. I think it will probably get to the point where, we revisit it and something, we create a version 2.0.
Mr. Greenspan.
Great, thank you. Kind of along the same lines as Mr. Miller. The obviously being an endorser is the correct amendment because we're too late to the game to be a signatory to the original agreement, correct?
That's correct.
What I read through the CBA, I didn't see where there was a delineation between roles and responsibilities as a signatory versus an endorser. What are the ultimate operational, voting, procedural differences between being an endorser or an original signatory?
If you don't mind, actually, I'd like to ask Chris Nance from the Construction and Diversity Committee to come up and speak briefly about how the committee operates. There really isn't a voting structure to it. This is really about how do we broaden the conversation about diversity and inclusion in projects throughout the county. If may, Brian Hall from Great Jesus. Okay.
Good morning, and hopefully to the councilman through the chair, I can help delineate the difference between the endorsers and the original signers. The memorandum of understanding. I'm sorry, I'm Brian Hall. I'm Executive Director of the Commission on Economic Inclusion, the Greater Cleveland Partnership. The original signers of the MOU took on some responsibility for organizing the effort, and as you read through the MOU, there were things like a demand study that had to be done, creating an organization, partners like the school system had responsibilities at Max Hayes. The building trades had responsibilities as well to participate and be a partner. And the endorsers, on the other hand, while they're just as important, were sort of saying we would support the outcomes of this effort and help make the outcomes come through to this effort. So I think the difference between signing the MOU as a partner organization where there were things that we had to do to bring it together versus university or hospital or others who said, we support what you're doing and we will implement activities that would support this outcome. And the county would be another owner that would be in that category. As we move forward, if there's new tasks that the group has to take on, we may have to amend the MOU, and the appropriate partners for those tasks would be asked then to sign based on some responsibility that they're taking on for the action in that. So I think that's the difference between those who originally signed and those who were the endorsers of it. Outcomes really are the responsibility of all of us, and in particular the owners. And you are an owner, and much of what you're going to discuss later on your agenda is in part, helping to make those outcomes come true. And we're absolutely thrilled that you're doing so.
So if I can continue, so at this point, I understand obviously when this agreement was signed, not all the endorsers were engaged in the process for whatever reason. Now that the agreement is in place, are you saying that there are that an endorser has the same, I'll use the word rights loosely, but the same rights as an original signator?
Using that term loosely, yes.
Okay.
So the organization has structured itself around an executive committee of the MOU signers, but a big part of what we implement is based on the owners committee, of which the endorsers are. So the owners are the ones who are deciding what we would report, how we would report, what might be specific elements of community benefit agreements that they are accepting. So it might be that the MOU could be viewed as a policy, and the owners are those who are saying we will enact that policy. It might be another way of looking at it.
So are you saying that the original signatories effectively serve as one body, and the endorsers or contractors are a separate body?
No, I'm not saying that. We are all together as a body.
So the endorsers sit at the same table as the original signatory. The
Yes.
county has a horrible history of getting late into the game in agreements and then being a major contributor, whether it be a funding source or whether it be requirements demanded upon us, and then we have acquiesced all rights to how the decisions are ultimately made, to which we are bound. So I just want to ensure that and what you're telling me is that an endorser has the same rights as an original signatory.
I don't think I could say that legally, because there is, at least in the formation and the structure, a committee of the MOU signers who have helped design the structure of this. And so the owners are our most important participants. There's just two separate voices. It's almost apples and oranges. So I don't think I could say that. I would say, though, that the structure that we have implemented and you have been a participant in has been a very inclusive structure that's had parties who are some who aren't endorsers or signers who are participating in discussions and helping us come up with collaborative answers. But the key for all of us is this is a voluntary effort, and if owners decide that there's something that they are not willing to do, we don't have authority to cause them to do something different, but they are saying we endorse and support this, and our action should be in line with this. And as I said, much of what you're discussing later aligns with some of the policies that we all are supporting. We would be happy to have you as a signer of the MOU, and I think it was originally contemplated that would happen, but legally, many of the things that we've agreed to do have already taken place, and so it just doesn't fit to ask someone to sign with a responsibility for something that they didn't have a chance to be a participant in.
Okay, all right.
I think that's what's been concluded.
Yeah, I mean, I see no reason not to approve the amendment to endorse, because that's all we can do at this point. But I would be interested in continuing the dialogue, so we're a full participating member of the organization. So those are my comments on this issue.
Well, thank you. As I listened to the commentary of the last meeting, actually in my notes, it's exactly what I came out of it, is that, yes, we're not part of this because we weren't there.
Right.
So certainly we want to endorse it, but I think the other thing that's important is what you said is this is voluntary. The county doesn't want to mandate. We're not Congress.
Right.
But I think, as you said, what we do next, I think that we're going to do some good stuff, and the signers and the endorsers are going to say, hey, the county's come up with some plans, and we want to make that part of the
Yes.
this memorandum of understanding, because really what we do next will possibly give the tools to these owners could take advantage of. So
Absolutely.
any final discussion on the amendment? Mr. Jones.
Brian, just a little clarification on what structure is in place. There is a committee. Who is on that committee? How many members are on it, and are others added to that founding committee?
So the MOU called for the Greater Cleveland Partnership to create a structure similar to our Commission on Economic Inclusion for Construction Diversity. That structure includes anyone in our community who would like to participate. We don't call it membership, but participate. So we have over 100 volunteers who are participating, representing various organizations. We decided that those who signed the MOU should sit in a committee as the executive committee, so that if there are things we need to discuss, for instance, we talk in the agreement about first, that it's voluntary, but two, that it pertains to major projects. Well, what do we all consider to be a major project? And we needed to have some method for coming to a conclusion about that. And so the executive committee has that responsibility for saying, here's what we consider to be a major project. But remembering our structure includes a community committee, so we have many CDCs or community organizations, a contracting committee that's made up both of majority and minority contractors, a pre-apprentice training committee that's made up of those who are training workforce to get into the construction industry, and that owners committee that I mentioned. In every regard, in each of those committees, they are reporting to the whole, and it's not operating as though a hierarchy of executive committee is being reported to. It's a report to the whole. And as I said, the county has been a participant at our meetings, which is a demonstration that even those who were not endorsers or signers were welcome to participate, to give input, and to help us build this. And so we're glad that you're at a point where you can actually be an active, even more active participant.
Right. In a perfect world.
Just hold 1 second. Let's have one meeting, because I'm actually getting distracted. Let's stay with one meeting. Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
Thank you. In a perfect world, the county would have been a part from the
Correct.
beginning, and we have been in attendance. But there's nothing preventing us from being a part of this executive committee. Am I hearing that? Is this in place in such a way that we're just all voluntarily a part of it, or considering the size of the county and the dollars that flow and the influence that this county has? The word rights were used, but I would add to the word rights responsibilities. The county has responsibilities to the residents of this county. And it appears to me being a part of this executive committee might be a proper place for the council, for the county government. What thoughts do you have?
My quick answer to you through the chair is that you would be welcome. I'm sure our members would welcome the county's participation for all the reasons you just mentioned, and particularly the actions that you're taking today or considering.
I would just say this and comment. This is about building momentum, a memorandum of understanding. The stakeholders across this county have come together and have come to an understanding about how we improve the economy of this county. it's part of our charter mandate. And it clearly says we are supposed to develop and implement policies and programs that enhance the economic activity of our county. That's our mandate as a county charter, and the MOU parallels and speaks to that. So it perfectly lines up with what our charter mandates that we do. So we should be a part of this MOU and be willing to stand out publicly and say we want to be part of it, whether we signed the original paperwork or came along second with all the rights and responsibilities of any other socially responsible stakeholder in this county.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Has anybody from the county attended any of these meetings?
Almost all the meetings, yes.
Okay,
Both.
who attends for the county?
Ken Surratt has attended, and Khalil has attended as well, most of the meetings. And we've also come to the county and presented and updated both council and the administrative on several occasions as to where we were in this process, in anticipation that the county would eventually be able to participate in a much more full way once the disparity study was completed.
Great. Thank you. Mrs. Connell.
Through the chair to Brian or to the legal department, I'm just concerned if the administration changed tomorrow, a new administrator could come in and say that endorse is not actually the way that they want the county to operate now. So just wondering, or very concerned about actually being a signature on the document so it can long live the different political figures that may come into those seats. So just wondering, is that some conversation, or am I on the right path? If we say this today and we're just endorsing and tomorrow the executive changes, it's really not any strength to make sure that the county stays moving in this.
Well, this item, like any piece of legislation, right now we're signing on to endorse, so that will continue until, since council voted on it, it will continue until, assuming the council and the exec agree to vote for this, it will continue for the next executive, whoever that may be, if that time comes, until council repeals it or something.
So council
So this is just like any other piece of legislation that's before you. It will continue unless and until it's repealed by council.
But sometimes the county exec enters into agreements without our knowledge. We just come in on the part where we're talking financial. I just think personally that we should actually, if you believe in something wholeheartedly, and I think Councilman Jones said it best, that our jobs are to make sure that all the county residents have an opportunity to participate. So I would just feel better if we had that conversation. If we believe in this, then we should be signers on the original agreement. Then that way future legislators or executives will know that this is something that we should follow. So I would like to have that conversation. How do we convene and do that, actually become signers, and as well as give the other organizations that are endorsers right now an opportunity to really put their money in office.
I think we want to be at a point now of just endorsing this, and then with our next actions, I mean, we're finally bringing some skin to the game, and I see us becoming signers to it, because hopefully we're going to have some significant addition to what they started out trying to create. Now that we've got the study, so at this point, it's endorsed, and then sometime in the future, we'll have something as a signer, especially with what we bring to the table. and hopefully the owners and endorsers will buy in and have some positive reaction to bring everybody up. So any final questions on in changing this to endorse?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Jones, go
One
ahead.
final comment.
Go ahead.
Again, this is an understanding, how the county, what understanding the county would have about how we improve our economy. Maybe, Brian, I've read the MOU. Maybe you could take a moment, because we have 4 more pieces of legislation to get through, so we want to keep it moving. But maybe just touch on some of the things that are captured in the MOU. What do the businesses and the stakeholders across this county, what do they agree to? What is it that we all understand about this? Some of those things parallel what we're already doing. You capture some things that we can start to aspire to. Maybe just share with us so we know what the MOU actually says.
Certainly, I'm happy to. And if I might, because I won't be able to stay to testify on the other legislation, I'd like to make a couple comments about that as well. I just would begin by saying I was part of a transition team when county government changed to be more economic development focused. And the transition team that I chaired was inclusion and equity. I chaired that with Dr. Berkman from CSU and State Senator Nina Turner and 30 of our fellow citizens around the county who spent hours working on a plan of recommendation for the county on how it could be more inclusive. So I'm proud to be here as you're considering that, because that was, I think, 5 or 6 years ago. We spent quite a bit of time. This work on the MOU parallels some of the recommendations from that committee's work. And so, again, I'm proud to support your actions that you're considering. The Memorandum of Understanding really has 2 components to it. One is stating publicly what we all believe should be a policy in our community for how equitable construction should be done. And that part, I understand why you want to be signing onto that right away. The second component to it was what each of the parties would do to enact that policy. And that's what makes it difficult for you to sign at this time, because there were things we had to actually do. As I'm listening to you, I could see, though, that there might be things that the county brings to this process as a participant that would cause us to want to amend the MOU to add the county's actions. And I think that's where you were going, Mr. Chair. So in this, number one was we had to do a demand study. We had to understand what was the expected construction and what was the workforce looking like in the next 5 years. And we did that through funding of partners, foundations, and some of the owners. That demand study gave us the information that supported our presumption that there was a need to train more women, minorities, and local residents in the construction industry. And so that was really the bedrock of launching our pre-apprentice group. It also created, by signing the MOU, a tie between Towards Employment, El Barrio, the Urban League, and Tri-C, so that while they all have been doing some forms of training to try to get workers into the construction industry, they were now tied together with the blessing of the Cleveland Building Trades, who have been a great partner and participant. Another action was to get Max Hayes, our regional trade school, certified as a pre-apprentice program, so that the children who were, and young men and ladies who were going to that high school could graduate not just with some trade knowledge, but also enough knowledge to become an apprentice in the trade unions. And that happened last year. It started in this year's curriculum, and we've had the success of hearing the report back from the school system. And I saw Eric Gordon this morning that we have 18 students now prepared and able to go into the trades. It's more than Max Hayes had produced in the last 5 years. And we've got it in 6 months because they changed the curriculum. They brought on a coordinator with partnership with the building trades. And this is now working so that we can start to produce local and minority and female workers. So those were really key components. And then there's goals that we all agreed should be set around projects, and that there would be transparency in reporting. And I think the transparency, since we couldn't implement penalties for owners who are voluntarily participating and using their own money and not using public money, we couldn't institute penalties, but the owners felt like if we did this and we reported publicly, then that would create the momentum for other owners to do it. We were surprised, and we've been pleasantly surprised that every quarter we're getting reports on a number of projects around town on a voluntary basis on how they're doing on their goals for pre-apprentice hours, apprenticeship hours, I should say, for diversity of workforce and diversity of contracting. And we think just the public nature of that is the carrot versus the stick that will cause more owners to participate and the numbers to improve. And so those are some of the components of the MOU. As I said, I won't be able to testify on the other ordinances that you have before you, but I am fully supportive, as it's a partnership, of a more inclusive county government and purchasing process, and applaud you all for the work that you're doing.
Well, I like that carrot versus the stick. You know, we can get bogged down in the legislative aspect of it, which is important and critical. But you all know me. I think of this almost as in kindergarten. They say, stay together. Hold hands when you cross the street. You know, don't talk with somebody else. All that basic kindergarten, that's what this MOU is. Let's all come together and hold hands, and we will start to move forward. Maybe the county starts to push in a way that the MOU goes to 2.0. And we all collectively say this is something we can all do. Maybe there are things in the MOU that the county is not doing, and we can start to, but we all stay together, hold hands, and we move forward together. So thank you.
Thank you. And I really think after hearing all this, we should be endorsing and thanking the participants in doing this, because you've done it on your own and without government money. So certainly I'm thankful of that. A couple things that came up in your comments. This inclusion and equity, was there a report when you concluded that when you were doing the transition?
Yes.
If we can get a copy of that, I think it would be important just to have that as some basis as we move on to these other resolutions.
Yes, I'm happy to. I know that Councilman Miller had spent quite a bit of time with that report in the first term of office, and was a champion for pushing much of that through. That's helped us get to this point.
Okay, great. So since we're not changing this memorandum of understanding because it's theirs, we're endorsing it. I think this is one thing that we could go ahead and move forward. Second reading?
No, wait. I'm sorry. I thought we were just voting on, I mean, to raise that much of an ire, but I thought we were just voting on an amendment to change the language from.
We are.
Okay, because I have questions about the memorandum itself that were posed last meeting. There were actually, Councilmember Simon and I echoed the same concerns, and I thought we would discuss that after we discuss the amendment on endorsement.
Okay. All right, but I think we're ready to accept the amendment. Is that any final questions on the amendment? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, that is changing it to enter into agreement to endorse, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. We could discuss this further. I heard some of the questions that Councilwoman Simon had, but since we're not part of this, we can have questions about this, certainly, but I don't think we have any authority
No.
to make changes to this.
No, and I understand, Mr. Chair, and that wasn't where I believe Councilwoman and my comments were coming from, and I'll speak for myself and not, since Ms. Simon's not here. But the question I had was that this MOU was entered into in 2013, contemplated for some time prior to that. We since have had a disparity study completed. My question had to do with, is the findings of our disparity study consistent with the content of the MOU? Because if they're not, for us to enter into an MOU that's inconsistent with where the county, based on the disparity study, are going, would not be prudent to enter into. If it's determined that they're both benign to one another, then that's a different issue. I just asked for an analysis to determine that the disparity study is not in conflict with the MOU.
I
can-
understand what you're saying, and I agree with that.
Right.
But I think what we're going to be bringing to the table, hopefully, will have the impact of having this memorandum of understanding updated so that it would be accepting what we're proposing, and then if there is any conflicts, that would be the time when we would probably try to get that memorandum of understanding so that everything would be compatible.
Mr. Chairman, conflicts is not the appropriate word because this is an understanding. There are things that certainly parallel what we're already doing and following our own charter mandate, but there are things that are aspirational, and we are not. It is not binding on us, but it is meant to move this county forward. So you would expect that, and conflict is not the right word. You would expect that there are things that are constantly moving the chains, use a football term, moving things forward, and it's not binding on us, but there is a need to move forward, and the county may do things that the city of Cleveland doesn't do, or that any other private business may decide not to do, or have chosen to do that we're not doing. University Hospital is doing some incredible things, but by coming to an understanding, we're saying we're seeing each other move in a direction, and how do we all move together? So conflict, I don't think, is the appropriate word to describe what's going on here.
Well,
All right, let me rephrase.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we're consistent that the conflict may be an incorrect word. I want to ensure that the disparity study is consistent with the MOU. Maybe that's where a more appropriate statement.
Mr.
The
Bowman.
disparity study is not or was not needed in order for us to endorse or sign on to the MOU. It just so happens that the disparity study is done, and as part of a package of legislation, we're deciding to endorse the MOU. But it's important to point out that the disparity study was never ever needed in order for us to enter into or endorse the MOU.
I understand. My point is there any now that we're down the road, we're 3 years later. Is the disparity study of the county commission consistent with the aspirational objectives in the MOU?
If I may, and the short answer is yes, very much so. What the MOU is, as Mr. Hall has said, is really trying to create the pipeline of diversity into the construction industry. I think it's very much consistent with, I think that's then the pipeline that helps create the MBE, FBEs that are working within that. I also believe that the other big component of this is creating the aspirational goals for inclusion. That very much was called out in the disparity study, and it's actually one of the pieces of legislation that will be before you. And then the last part is really about the transparency and monitoring and reporting. And so that will be also, again, part of our future programming is making sure that we are actively and monitoring and reporting on our metrics and progress towards these goals. So to Councilman Greenspan, I believe that's very consistent still with where we're going.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't agreeing to endorse a document that was created 3 years ago might be inconsistent with a direction the county is moving towards. That's the only reason I raised the issue. I'm not opposed to it. I just want to make sure we're consistent with what we're signing on to.
Okay, I agree with you. You know, we don't want to endorse something that we don't believe in, but so any further discussion on just, we're not passing this, we're just changing this to endorse, and that'll be what we're working with.
Mr. Chairman, I would say this, again, we are not binding ourselves legally to have to do something. Again, you've heard the word voluntary throughout this. So it is each council person's personal belief. I personally see no conflict or any conflict with the direction the MOU is going in and in the direction that I would personally like to see the county government go in. And all 11 of us have to come to our own decision about the direction we'd like to see this county go in. But it doesn't put us in any legal binding. So each person would just have opportunity to vote on
I
it.
get it. Okay, any further discussion on this endorsing?
Are we gonna pass this out?
It's been moved and seconded to
Amendment.
accept the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, so this is what we have before the committee, and then if there's questions concerning the MOU, we'll try to get that done offline, and work with the staff on that, and then present that at the committee meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to move it out to the full committee. I mean, we could all have questions, and I'm sure we're gonna have questions, but like Councilman Jones stated, we've endorsed it, we've signed on, we believe in it, and so we can't change the actual MOU itself, so it's either pass it out to the full council. And in the meantime, we can get our questions answered, but those questions aren't gonna change the structure of the MOU in any way, whether we like the answers or not. So I make a motion to move it out.
There's a motion, is there a second? Okay, there's a motion and a second. I just, I'm sorry, Ms. Simon's not here. I think we should find out if I don't want to use conflict, but if there's areas that she's got questions about, because you're endorsing something, and if there's some problem, we might just need some clarification.
And Mr. Chair, I'll rephrase my word conflict. I don't mean conflict.
I understand that.
Consistency.
I understand that.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any objection of us sending it? Okay. So it's been moved and seconded that this gets sent to the council under second reading. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay. 2016 038 will be sent to council under second reading. Okay, this committee is scheduled until 12 o'clock noon. I think it was important that we have an understanding of that. And now to move forward on the, if you have some general comments concerning the remaining four, why don't we make them? But I think I'd like to concentrate a little bit on 2016 004.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, there's also a proposed substitute in the packet on page 20 for 004.
Okay, and this was proposed by,
By the law department.
okay, so can we have a, let's see, where is this?
And these items are just formatting changes, nothing substantive.
I'm trying to see where that is. Where is that in the packet?
It's on page 20.
Okay, so we have, do you read that, or do we need it moved before you read it?
I already read it into the record.
Okay. Comments on substitute 0004.
I believe that's our law director said that the changes that were in the proposed substitute are all formatting and don't change any of the substance of the pieces of
Okay,
legislation.
so it's just clerical? Okay, I'll move that this be the proposed substitute. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, we need to have a quorum in the room before we can make a motion.
Okay. Sorry, we need a quorum. Basically, what we're at, Mr. Greenspan, is there's a substitute that is clerical in nature, just with the numbering.
Non-substantive changes.
And so it's been moved and seconded that,
It has not been yet. You should make.
I
your mo-
think I moved and you seconded, but we couldn't vote. Did we move in second?
You moved, but there was no second.
Oh, I'm sorry,
I
okay.
I will now second.
Okay.
And you should repeat your motion now that we have a quorum.
Okay. The proposed substitute, I move the proposed substitute of ordinance 2016-0004.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. This is just clerical in nature, reformatting. Any questions on that? Okay, all those in favor of making this the proposed substitute, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Okay, the motion carries.
Okay.
Okay. So Ken, you have some general comments that you'd like to make on 2016-0004.
Sure. To the chairman, the committee. This piece of legislation particularly addresses set-asides. And this is directly from a recommendation contained within the disparity study. It's actually recommendation number 3. With this, the plan is to have Public Works review its annual capital improvement plan every year, looking at both goods and services, and breaking out pieces of projects that could fall where there's capacity within the SBE community to fulfill and compete just against other SBEs. This is another way, again, to try to create more capacity and experience with the SBEs, letting them compete against each other on projects that they have all the capabilities of doing. And that way they're not competing against primes or larger companies that may have some scale advantages. So the thought here too is once these opportunities are developed, that OPD will help with its outreach to the SBE community to ensure that they're aware of these opportunities. And again, hopefully the goal is to boost their inclusion in contracts. Just to be clear, this is not minority or female-owned businesses. This is small business set-asides only.
Okay. So let me start off by saying what I heard at the last presentation, last committee meeting, is that there is not a heck of a lot of jobs that Public Works are really going to be able to, well, let's see, maybe I'm getting a little bit confused. On there wasn't many jobs where we were going to have these as direct contacts, but this has to do with the set-asides in contracts where there's the 30% requirement for having a SBE. Is that correct, that what we're talking about?
To the chair, this is actually where we'll have only SBEs bidding on projects for goods and services. So it would be SBEs only that will be eligible to bid on these on some particular items, again as defined
Okay.
by Public Works.
Okay, and Lenore, I see you're standing right behind. Didn't I hear you say that there's really going to be a limited amount of contracts that the county will have that we'll be able to set aside? Did you say that, or?
Lenore Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. I remember and recall making a statement regarding the performance bond and that they were waiving it for construction projects under $250,000. And my comment was that based historically, we usually do not have a lot of construction projects that are under $250,000.
Exactly.
But the set-aside program, that's a different category. Those are projects, there is no cap on the dollar of the value of the contract. It is just looking at a contract for which the pool of vendors, there's a significant pool of SBE vendors that will still provide us with a competitive process, but because they don't have the benefit of scale, them having a competition among similar size SBEs will give them an opportunity to serve as a prime and get better experience in growing their business. Okay. So an example could be, for instance, the easy one, and I hate to pick on Public Works all the time, would be a resurfacing project, our operations resurfacing. Usually our operations resurfacings are where we're planing off the top layer of asphalt, doing some base repairs. There's a pool of contractors, small and large, that all can provide those services and meet the needs that the county has. And we have, but when you submit those when you do a bid, majority of the vendors that will have the best chance of providing, because it's lowest and best, will be the larger bidders. So that limits the opportunity for a smaller business because they don't have the economies of scale to provide better pricing to the county. But however, if you have a pool where you say that this asphalt project may be on the east side of the operation resurfacing program, we're going to set aside that contract for small businesses, still meeting requirements of scope of work, but just limiting a pool to small businesses that can provide that opportunity to them, that can provide that bid. So it's not a cap. It could still be a $1 million or $2 million project.
That brings up a point, having served on the SBE grievance committee, I think we found out in our last meeting at the SBE grievance committee that SBE is not necessarily small. When you use the SBA of the federal government, some of these SBEs are huge. I mean, we are talking, to call them small, it's kind of ridiculous. The common guy here in Cuyahoga County, if you told them what qualifies as a SBE under the SBA. So actually, I'd like to discuss this in coming weeks at committee meetings about that SBA. And I'm just throwing out that, and I don't know if we have the capacity to do it, but I think we may be able to do it with our own contracts and having something smaller than a SBE under the SBA, and that would be a micro company. Because some of these SBEs are pretty large, and if you bring the list with you, and we'll have that as a document that we'll have the committee have, will go into the fact that SBA qualified contractors are not necessarily small. So I don't know if we should come up with our own idea of having something smaller for our own contracts, and maybe, you know, law department can do that as long as it's not federal money. So having said that, the other thing that I thought about is in the comments from one of the presenters at the beginning of the meeting saying during about the FBE is that that the female companies were not taken seriously, and there wasn't many incentives for companies to actually use a FBE or a MBE or so. You know, if we came up with a micro, or whatever we want to call it, let's just say micro right now instead of small, and scaled down the size contractor. I know you got into the fact that when you have these pre-bid conferences, you had primes and you wanted to get the subs so that there's some networking. I think that's a great idea, in particular if there's micro. But you know, I was kind of thinking after I heard the comments about this idea of really, if there isn't that much that Cuyahoga County really bids out in construction, but we bid out other things and so on. To really, and it's just coincidentally that NPR is this week talking about the economy in Cleveland and how depressed it is. So that's depressing in itself. So, you know, I was trying to think, and this is just some brainstorming, of where we could really have something that might catch fire, and it's thinking outside the box. And I was thinking, well, what does the county have where, what you know, without spending our own money, well, indirectly we're going to be spending our own money. I came up with this idea of maybe giving businesses, so we're not relying just on contractors, but if we did have certified micro or FBE, SBE, MBE certified people, if we put some skin in the game by saying that businesses would get a credit of 20% or 25% of their property tax by using a micro or SB or whatever we want to call this. So for example, so then we have businesses out there that have got big property taxes, and if they could get 20% credit for hiring one of these small business. Now it's a cost us because we're going to be losing. We're actually going to be allocating some of those property taxes, and this is going to involve the budget and finance and so on and so forth. But the acceleration and the multiplication of having small businesses employed, they paying taxes, they paying their property taxes, the multiplier might be phenomenal. Just as the Republican National Convention, the multiplier of these people coming in, it's a fantastic. So, that is kind of thinking out of the box. I don't even know if that's possible, but maybe if we can't do it with property taxes, I don't know what else incentive we could do. But the reason I thought that might be interesting is because it's not relying on construction companies and contractors. It's actually allowing the businesses and people that are not businesses that have property. If there can be a credit for using a disadvantaged or small business, why not? And what really confirmed this is listening to the radio this morning. They were talking about how the three-point shot changed things in the NBA. Just a new idea, and it dramatically has changed basketball. And maybe, Cuyahoga County could start something that could dramatically give incentives for people to use small, minority, female, whatever, micro contractors. And I could remember back 20, 30 years ago when we had businesses were getting federal money to hire people, and part of the payment, they were a credit with the federal government, MCJC type thing. And I know a lot of businesses personally that took advantage of this, and a small company in particular that I insured became a big company because they were using this program, and in that particular case, they were actually hiring Vietnamese workers, okay? And they found that there was a tremendous supply, and these people couldn't get other jobs, and they were in manufacturing, and this company grew by leaps and bounds because these were great people and appreciated the fact that they were hired. So that's just kind of a brainstorm idea. I don't know if we could legally do anything like that, but maybe this is what we should research. But I definitely want to identify at the next session talking about how big the SBEs are. Because if we rely on that, I don't really think we're going to be as effective as we could be. Do you care to comment on that? Anything I've said here?
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you. That has always been one of our concerns. Before the new transition to the new government, the previous SBE program had enacted specific dollar amounts by category. However, because it was enacted and it wasn't updated, those dollar values, and I believe they were based on the SBA at that time also because they had to quickly develop a program. But over time, those dollar values were no longer in line with the market. The concern is always that the SBA, which is national, values for a small company may not be applicable to the counties, but we wanted to have an objective way of, because we're deciding, are you in or out? And there were significant companies that did exceed the size or were borderline, that did not want to be removed from the program because of the size standard. So our thoughts at that time was, even in addition to the disparity study, looking at economically what our distribution and demographics of how we spend the county dollars, would also look at economically what is a small asphalt contractor or IT company or engineering company for our market, so that we can have, again, objective data, so that when we're telling a vendor no and they're saying I qualify under SBA, but now you have this arbitrary number, we can say no, we have an economic analysis that has dictated that this is the size of a comparable small company in Cuyahoga County for our region. Because we do receive challenges on that, because a lot of companies as SBEs receive the benefit of the program, And our policy is that if they exceed the limit 3 years straight, then they're graduated from the program. And then it's similar to MBEs and FBEs, they want to continue prosperity for their company, which is obvious, but they know that the door was open because of that designation in a lot of areas. So if they lose that designation, their fear is that they will no longer have that revenue.
Mr. Deaver, you've been standing there.
Yeah.
You must have something to say. So.
I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Mike Dever with the Public Works Department. I was just going to reiterate about the potential for the set-asides for this program. Lenora had noted that we do have these asphalt repaving contracts that have been basically large contracts that covered multiple. There was like an east side contract and a west side, which covered 3 to 4 major roads. We're looking at is possibly cutting some of those down and breaking a few of them apart to make it more inviting for those SBEs to participate in. So, because those are the kind of projects that they can handle the capacity or have the capacity to do. Also, we'll be looking at some of the engineering contracts for some of the design work and some of the things on the facilities. I think Lenora made note of this at the last committee meeting, is such as window washing on our facilities. We believe those are a good opportunity for the county to use as the pilot for this set aside. And I think as we continue to explore, we can identify what other opportunities are out there. So we're working through that right now, and we think it'll be successful, though.
Do you understand my point in that just by the contracting that the county can offer is just scratching the surface? I mean, it really is not going to be a significant ingredient in raising everyone up. But if we come up with some kind of incentive program, this could really catch fire.
No, I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd say it's worthy to get into the exploration for it. It's somewhat exciting that, we're into this discussion right now, and the administration is very much, looking forward to bringing this, the legislation forward now, but implementing it and getting it out there on the roll. And looking at that opportunity also, I think it's something, as we get this piece going, then we can look at other opportunities, and that's just another example of one. So I applaud you for putting something out there.
Thinking outside the box.
That's it.
Mr. Jones.
Yeah, and that's good. We need to think outside of the box. When I wrote the original legislation back in 11-12, I said the county shall conduct a disparity study once every 5 years. The point was, as we collected the data, we wanted to keep it fresh. And having completed one, we know that there is a racial disparity, and we have recommendations. Maybe our recommendations don't get the job done. In 5 years, we're taking the pulse of the county, the health and condition of our county, and what do we do in response to what we find, not just for 2014, but then in 2019. So from 2014 to 2019 will be 5 years. And then we go back, reassess, and if the things that we're doing now were not strong enough, well, now we have a foundation to say, well, we tried this. Now let's make it stronger. This was non-race conscious. What we're doing now is non-race conscious. We may determine, well, maybe we have to do something race conscious. Well, maybe we need to strengthen the fact that the FBEs are having, still having challenges because everyone is an SBE, but they're still drilling down to what we're trying to accomplish is to impact even the smallest segments within our county to strengthen them and make them whole. So we certainly want to keep open to the options of change, and it's built in to our mechanism to actually do that.
Okay. Any other comments? I see we're getting close to the time. Yes, Ms. Connell.
Through the chair to Director Dever, you mentioned that our set-asides, we were going to look at window washing. So I just need to know, maybe because I just don't know, how many small business window washers that we have in the county, And are they a fair makeup of female businesses, minority businesses, and things of that nature? If we're gonna look at that as set-aside example.
Lenora Lockett again. I was just using that as an example of a service. So the plan is we'll work with Public Works. They have their capital improvement plan or their repeat contracts. Window washing is not construction, it's a service. We do exterminating services, we do window washing, floor mat removal services, we buy plumbing supplies. So as you're stating, that's one of the things that we would do. We will look at what contracts are coming up within the latter part of 2016 and 2017, because you want to have a calendar so we can have a timeline so SBEs know and can anticipate when these opportunities are coming. We'll look at those and look at our current listing of certified SBEs and see if there is a competitive market, where do they match up. And then from that point, we will also, obviously in the meantime, update our documents, getting ready for the process. And then once we have the list and our existing pool is a match, we know that we can encourage and market it so that we'll have more vendors. That could be the carrot for other vendors that may not be certified in the county, but do provide those services, but had never thought about the county being an opportunity for business for them. For instance, exterminating, we might only have 10, maybe 10 at the most exterminating companies, but if you look in the yellow pages, there are tons of exterminating companies. Similar with plumbing services. If there were certain plumbing contracts that Public Works had planned for different facilities, smaller projects, not an overall like building a new headquarters. It could be for a building that we own that we need to do some type of upgrade. If we see that there's a match with what they're planning to do, their scope of work, and what our existing pool and the general market. First, we want to make sure our existing pool, because we can't guarantee or want to be perceived as if there's only one person doing a set aside, then that person viewing it and the public perceiving it as a contract only for them. We want to have the existing pool and also use the list and calendar as a way of marketing to other area SBEs that provide those services, that there is an opportunity and when that opportunity is expected to occur.
I just want to make sure that they're inclusive, that the pool is looked at inclusively to make sure that all those entities are incorporated, because sometimes we have like sole source, where you have just a certain segment of people or group that only does a certain kind of work and you don't have anybody else. Just as a general to look at whether it's window washing, buying toilet paper or whatever, is that pool list is inclusive of female business, minority bid. So there's, when they go to bid, they really have an opportunity and that we're incorporating one of those FBE or whatever.
So one other kind of out of the box brainstorming, and we're going to be concluding here in just 2 minutes, but I can understand that our measurement is on the owner. FBE is woman-owned, SBE, MBE, so on and so forth. But really drilling down to really get down to bringing up and have everybody rise, the standard of so much of the employees that these owners use are either female or disadvantaged or minority. I think that's almost important. I mean, it's important that the owner, but if we can have like a super designation that you're female and you use females, at least 25% or whatever, then we're really having the small businesses help small people. And I don't know how we could tie that in, but if we really want to help and put jobs and get people into training for jobs and possibly even give these companies credit for training people, and I know the MOU talks about apprentices and so on and so forth, but I think that's where we can really shine. So the time has come to, our time is up, and unfortunately, I do have another commitment, so I cannot stay. Any miscellaneous people that would like to speak? No one signed up? Okay. Well, thank you very much. We, the staff, this committee, we got a lot of work ahead of us, and I'm excited about it. And I'm going to try to get as much done during my tenure, because once the bell rings December 31st, I'm going to be gone. So, but I'm excited about putting my teeth into this project. That concludes our agenda, so I'd like to dismiss this meeting. It's over. Thank you.